We are surprisingly bad at recognizing our own progress. We think we would notice if we were becoming stronger, wiser, or more resilient, but we usually don't, because the moment something becomes part of you, it stops feeling impressive. The habits that once required discipline become automatic. The conversations that once terrified you become ordinary. Problems that would have ruined your entire week become small inconveniences. And because they no longer feel difficult, you assume they were never that difficult to begin with. Progress has a side effect. It erases the memory of how hard things used to be. That's why many of us believe we are standing still. Here are 5 signs you're probably doing better than you think. 1. You get bored of your own drama faster than you used to. There was a version of you that could replay an awkward conversation for 3 days in a row. Now you replay it for 20 minutes and then you go make dinner. You still feel things, you just don't stay there for as long. People often mistake overthinking for emotional depth. It isn't. It's usually an unresolved loop trying to convince you that thinking a bit more will finally produce a different answer. It doesn't. One of the clearest signs of growth isn't that you stop getting upset. It's that you stop treating every emotional wave like a mystery that has to be solved. You begin to trust that you'll handle whatever comes next. So you stop replaying what already happened. 2. Fewer things feel personal. Someone shouts at you, you don't get a reply to your message. A colleague doesn't like your idea. A few years ago, your mind might have immediately asked, what did I do? Now you're more likely to think, maybe this isn't about me. One of the biggest psychological shifts is realizing that most people spend far more time dealing with their own lives than thinking about yours. When everything feels personal, every interaction becomes an assessment of how good and worthy you are. As you grow, fewer events become evidence about who you are. You don't become indifferent, you simply stop turning other people's behavior into your identity. 3. You can leave some things unresolved. An email doesn't get answered today. A difficult conversation has to wait. A decision needs another week. Someone is disappointed with you and you don't immediately rush to repair their perception of you. And surprisingly, you can live with that. We often confuse urgency with responsibility. We rush to close every open loop because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. But discomfort isn't the same as danger. One of the quietest signs of maturity is developing a high tolerance for uncertainty. You stop forcing answers just to make the anxiety disappear. Sometimes the best decision is simply waiting until you know more. 4. Your inner monologue has gotten quieter. It used to have an opinion about everything, analyze everything, judge everything. Now it mostly notices and moves on. A busy mind can feel productive, but it's often just unprocessed thoughts competing for attention. When our inner commentary becomes quieter, we worry we have become less passionate. Usually the opposite is true. We have stopped needing a constant internal audience for every experience. Your life has become something you live instead of something you constantly think about. 5. You have stopped explaining yourself to people who were never going to understand. You say what you mean, they don't get it. You clarify once, maybe twice, then you let it go. Not because you've stopped caring, because you've stopped believing that the perfect explanation exists. We carry the fantasy that if we just find the right words, everyone will finally understand us. But some disagreements are not caused by poor communication. They are caused by different values, different experiences, or different desires. Letting go of the need to be understood by everyone isn't giving up. It's giving up the fantasy that if you explain it well enough, they'll eventually agree with you. So, the strange thing about growth is that progress rarely feels like winning. It feels normal, usual. By the time you've changed, your new level has already become your baseline. The mind adjusts to improvement almost immediately, then acts like the improvement never happened. So it starts looking for the next problem to solve. That's not proof that nothing has changed. It's proof that some of the old problems no longer control you. So the question isn't how far do I still have to go, it's whether you'd notice how far you have already come, now that it doesn't feel like a fight anymore.